Um, Happy Friday and happy holidays to everybody. I guess with this forum, this last final forum, we're just more talking kind of like, not vaguely, but broadly about this class and um, what we've garnered from it. It's been really interesting, I think, for me, and I kind of talked about it in my forum today, or this week, about just feeling really conflicted sometimes about and I think we do this with everything. We tend to, as people, we tend to like go extreme to one side or the other. Things are good or they're bad, and that's it. And we don't really like, we have a hard time seeing things down the middle. And a part of that is I think we base our opinions on ourselves. Everything is kind of this like refraction of ourselves, which obviously makes sense. I mean, it's hard to like look outside of yourself um, when you're um, I mean, in general, it's hard to look outside of yourself. You know, I talk about this with friends with voting all the time. Is we vote based often single issue because we're voting based on something that means a lot to us. Whether that's I'm getting older and so I want to make sure that I'm taken care of in my retirement, then that's how you vote. Or if you identify as like homosexual, then maybe you're gonna vote for the person who seems to support that. You know, like, and rightfully so, we vote those ways. But I think what this class has kind of done is we're specifically talking about technology, but you have to look at it outside of that. I mean, you have to be able to recognize like what's happening is there isn't a clear cut answer to this. Like, is technology evil? No. Is it often, I mean, could you compare it sometimes to like an addiction? Yes. So I think it's really important to recognize that distinction and be able to say, okay, if my kid like throws a fit and screams and hits me when I take away their iPad, then maybe this isn't very good. But if you also just say like, oh, I don't let my kids ever touch an iPad or watch TV, or they won't have cell phones as long as they're in my house, um, I think not only are you preventing them from I mean, advancing with society, you're not only preventing that, you're also making it really difficult on yourself and your child going forward because we are such a technologically driven society. Osset, Osset in his final chapter um, talks about how quickly technology has advanced in the last 20 years and how that's like super important. Like, we've seen some pretty amazing things. And actually, when I was reading that part, I kept thinking about like growing up watching like science fiction with my mom and the way that they portrayed like how technology was going to advance. You know, of course you're like, what? That sounds so cool, or like, oh man, I'm really into that. And I think that we are hitting this mark where we're starting to kind of create technology in the way that we saw them, you know, extrapolating it when we were younger. And while it seemed really cool in this like, you know, like, oh man, what if kind of way, and it freaks people out. It freaks people out because it's so quick, you know, like my grandma, I feel like, you know, the first 25 years of her life, technology really didn't advance very much. I mean, that's not to say that there wasn't advancements. It just wasn't a shocking one. You know, I mean, like maybe they were like, "Hey, look at these microwaves," and you know, and they were like, "What? This makes our life so easy, and that's awesome." And then over time, people were like, "Hey, you know, like microwaving your food, all of it, all the time, maybe isn't the best option." Like, you know, um, and I know I'm getting a little off the point here, but I guess maybe sometimes that's the fear is like we get so excited about a new technology when it's introduced, and then later someone's like, well, I mean, like you're using it a lot, and that's kind of like maybe not very good and killing your brain cells or whatever. Or like maybe you're getting cancer from microwaving your food. I, no, I'm not saying that that's something I necessarily 100% agree with. I'm just, you know, I think about like the way that when formula was introduced, that, I mean, it's not a technology, but it's like this advancement. Formula was introduced, doctors were literally like, stop breastfeeding, just use formula. I mean, they were like pushing it. My mom in the hospital, she was like, this is exhausting. And they were like, yeah, you should just do formula. You shouldn't breastfeed. And we've gone back to this place where we're like, wait, breastfeeding's really good. Like, formula's so nice because it offers sustenance when sometimes breastfeeding isn't an option. But I think we embrace technology or advancement so much that well, like maybe we're recognizing now that sometimes we embrace it too quickly, and then somebody comes back in and they're like, "Wait, that's killing you," or "Oh, that's like not the healthiest option," or um, and I think that makes people really scared of um, embracing newness. I I get that as a mom. I go back and forth all the time. I was just reading a blog. There's this really popular blog for like alternative women, um, and it's Scary Mommy. But it's just this woman who's like very open about her experiences as a mom, and things that she thinks are really silly that a lot of moms get caught up in, or like get caught up in feeling that they're obligated to. So like PTA might be one. Like you don't have to be part of PTA. It doesn't make you a bad mom if you're not. But she had one about technology, and the article was why I let my kids use their iPad, and um, I always really liked it because she said a lot of the same stuff I feel. Um, but sometimes when I'm talking about it, I feel like I'm giving excuses. So it's, things like my, what if my kids grow up to be computer programmers? Or they could, but I refuse to let them play on their iPad because I was like, this is a evil device you're gonna get addicted to. And it's such a like, long shot, like, but I think with almost everything else, we allow our children to have this access to it. Like, what if my kid's gonna be a basketball star? Like, let's get him a little basketball goal and let him play. And like, what if my kid's gonna be a musician? Let's get him little pianos. Let's let him get him little guitars. We embrace all of that so much. There are so many jobs in technology. I mean, like, even just even creating apps is a pretty decent paying job. Coding. I mean, these are. It's just like I think about stuff like that all the time, and it makes me feel like it's important to allow my child the time with that technology. And even though she's really young, I mean, I don't know. I feel like the argument could be that like they freaking gave Mozart a piano at 2, and he started like composing at 4 or whatever. And I'm not saying by any means that my child's gonna be like the Mozart of coding or anything. And I don't think I'm that delusional most of the time. Um, but it does. It gives me this kind of like, I not flip floppy, but um, I like recognize, especially after this class, I recognize the problem with it, especially in regards to like social media, having access to social media like that, especially at a young age. And by young age, I mean like my kids' age. I mean like 12 and 13. I recognize the negativity of that, but it's hard to reconcile that with the hope that like my kids could have like a really good future in technology, in some technology based program. Um, and I think what I ended up liking about this book and this class is that it does concede to that. Like, okay, here are some things that are scary